While a lot of attention has been focused on implementing charter schools in West Virginia, another approach is quietly skyrocketing in popularity. In tonight's Crisis in the Classroom, Jennifer McAndrews looks into how many people are turning away from traditional classroom settings in the Mountain State and moving toward homeschooling.
Deborah Klimek isn't just any mother balancing a career and family. She's a pediatric ophthalmologist who homeschools her 3 children, a 14-year-old daughter in 9th grade and 2 12-year-olds.
And it's really been a joy to have that opportunity to see her learning, and she really enjoys it too.
After their oldest was born, she says she and her husband made a choice to try home-based learning, and it worked for them. Scores of other families now echo the same sentiment. Kathy Hess-Krause heads up the West Virginia Home Educators Group. She says the state's homeschool numbers before the coronavirus pandemic were around 13,000. The latest census numbers showed a surprise, though, an enormous increase. Homeschool families now number in the tens of thousands.
But once we got the census reports in, it appears West Virginia is in the mid-40s, maybe even the mid-50s with homeschoolers.
What do you attribute that to?
Everything. Parents having kids at home, seeing what their kids were or were not learning, seeing how far behind they were.
The pandemic did account for a spark of interest in homeschooling across the country. The last census showed 28 states with significant increases, and it was a trend in all racial and ethnic categories. In the spring of 2020, almost 5.5% of U.S. households were doing homeschool, and by the fall, that number was up to 11%. In West Virginia, the official numbers were strong, too. The spring of 2020 saw about 5.5% of households homeschooling and jumped to about 16.5% by the fall.
We're standing beside you.
And there was more than just the pandemic charging up West Virginia parents to turn to homeschooling. It was a trend first noticed after February 2018, when public school teachers went on strike.
Ours started growing during the first teacher strike, went up even more during the second teacher strike. And then the pandemic just exploded it exponentially. And it's been that way across the U.S.
And just who opts for homeschooling learning now? Hess-Krause agrees with the federal census numbers. She doesn't notice stereotypes now. She says the information she sees and gathers as part of her position is that there are families who are for and against masking, for and against what's being taught, small families, large families, and some religious and some who are not. Plus,
it's every education level for the parents. In West Virginia, you have to have a high school diploma or equivalent. So it's people from having GEDs all the way to having their PhD, being a doctor, what have you.
And for Deborah Klimek's oldest daughter, it's a teaching method that works best.
We've given her the opportunity to go to a public school or a private school, and she has had some experience with that, but has decided that she wanted to continue homeschooling.
And what works best for them is a mix of at-home instruction methods, plus online and live online classes.
We do literary discussions together, and I teach them writing. And we also do biology labs together as a group because it's more of a hands-on situation with learning for that.
Homeschooling's not a spectator sport. Homeschooling is full contact. So if it's not happening in your area, build it and they will come.
For Crisis in the Classroom, I'm Jennifer McAndrews.
There are requirements and guidelines you must meet to homeschool a child. The West Virginia Home Educators Association has more information about what's involved with homeschooling. You can find that information attached to this story on our website. Eyewitness News is always committed to digging deeper into these issues that impact your child's education. If you have a tip for our Crisis in the Classroom series, give our team a call. That number's there at the bottom of your screen, 304-935-59